Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 41 of Blown Speakers, which I mistakenly called episode 41, but now I am correcting that mistake. This is really episode 41. I'm Dave Hennigan coming in from Yokohama, Japan, and joining us again is Soggy coming in from Chiba, Japan. How are you, Soggy?
Pretty good. And I'm glad to know that we are in the correct episode 41. I'm relieved to hear that. So, yeah.
It's been a very rainy weekend, so you must be especially soggy this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Mm.
The soggiest sogger in the Soggiverse.
Okay, well, today we are going to begin a long conversation. Perhaps, like we've already said, there might be a part 2 and a part 3, etc. Talking about.
We said that, but you didn't actually say that yet.
Oh, that there would be a part 2 or a part 3. We'll see.
So
but
maybe you should back up.
Well, we're going to chip away the stone and talk about one Jandek album today.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, just a moment.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Soggy, yes. What were you going to say?
Was I going to say something? Yes. Yeah. We did discuss prior to this episode commencing that this will be part 1 of possibly a series, with the intent that I would say by episode 4100 we will have pretty much got through the majority of the discog. Yeah, if we're still alive, and by that meaning, I think at a certain point going through the discog, you might just want to shoot yourself.
Well,
but yeah, no. Yeah.
So he has more than 100 albums, right? And depending on who you talk to, different people recommend different starting points, which leads me to like there isn't an overwhelming consensus that you should definitely start with this album and move on to this. Like, I don't know, I've just come to the realization that pick an album and start listening, and you'll either want to listen to more or you'll never want to listen to it again. I don't feel like there's much middle ground. I mean, not saying that everyone who listens will feel they need to hear every single album, but I mean, I think it's kind of common for people who are familiar with him to have a long-term interest in him. Like, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like he's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's more like the trajectory of his career as such. I mean, when he was discovered, well, I don't know when he was discovered, but when he seemed to be hitting it big was more like in the 2000s, right? As far as the name being, batted around. In other words, by that point, he had already had a massive discog under his belt. And so here he was coming to people not as some new artist on the block, but as a phenomenon that had existed and continues to exist. So I think people just approach that differently. I think the first thing people do when they get that is they're like, right, so where do I start? That's probably the first question people ask when confronted with that kind of scenario, And speaking for myself, and I believe for yourself as well, Dave, I did not become familiar with Jandek until like I said, the 2000s or something like that, I would say.
But it was early 2000. It was like the time, about the
Probably,
time,
yeah.
yeah, me, you, and Greg were hanging out a lot.
Yeah, Worthless Recluse dropped or something like that. 2000. Did you say that was 2001?
Well, I'm gonna geez, I don't know. We were just looking at the Discog, but
Sorry.
yeah. Oh, so Soggy, if you've noticed, I've promoted you to host. I think so far you've only been referred to as guests, but you've
right.
you've been given
Sure,
a bump.
I'll be a host.
And that comes with a full extension,
May
all
May I
benefits.
pour you a drink, sir? As a host.
Oh,
No, you like that, eh?
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
That's just practicing my host techniques.
here's a comply to you moving up in the
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right on.
yeah.
Or yeah. Excellent.
Okay, so
The hunter.
okay, so I'll just for the sake of finding a place to begin talking about Jandek, I'm going to talk about how I heard about him. So it was in Mojo magazine in like 2000, right? About that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mojo had a section that was called "What do you mean you haven't heard of dot dot dot?" Or it was called something like that, right? Where they would just like present some like cult kind of person, right?
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, and of course, I'm a huge Daniel Johnston fan. And through there, I was developing more of an interest in, outsider music. I had a Wesley Willis album. I saw Wesley Willis eating a burrito in Chicago once.
Right.
Yeah, and I listened to some Fugs and some Shags and I was interested in outsider, lo-fi, underground, off the radar type stuff. And yeah, they Mojo introduced Jandek, right? And they must have told his story to some degree, right? Kind of, he's been making music since 78, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they must have. I wish I would try to find the article, but I couldn't find it. But whatever they said, they had piqued my interest. Like, okay, I want to hear what this guy's music sound like. And it was the kind of thing where they kind of say, we can't describe it, you have to listen to it yourself, right? So I'm like, okay, I want to hear this guy, right? But but in those days, like we didn't really have internet access where we lived, right, in our Gaijin house. And I don't know how much Jandek was up online. So I hadn't heard, I was curious about him, but I hadn't heard his music until you actually started buying his CDs, right? So now, did you get those at that place? I remember you took me to some small little store in Shinjuku one time that like specialized in.
They're not that small. They're a major chain, actually. Disc Union.
Okay, but is that where you would have taken me one time? I felt like we went to some specialty store that was.
Disc Union is a specialty store.
No, I know Disc Union. I thought this was something more minor.
No, I'm quite certain there's a couple of other shops that it could have been, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was Disc Union because that's always been my go-to. And Disc Union is a kick-ass shop. If you're ever in Japan, you want to score some obscure records, go to Disc Union. Screw all the other shops. Only joking. The other shops are great too, but Disc Union has been a good one. It was probably the 7th floor or 8th floor Disc Union, where each floor represents a kind of style of music.
Maybe that's why I thought it was a small place. Maybe we went like directly to the.
Well, yeah, each floor is quite small.
Okay.
Each floor is quite small, but I guess if you take all 7 or 8 floors in together, it comes up to a fair amount of real estate there. So,
Anyway, is that where you found the Jandek material?
that's, yeah, well, they were selling crap loads of it, to be honest. And it was the same thing. Like, you're looking at all of these, and all the covers are awesome, all the titles are awesome.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know. So when I first bought, like, I bought 3 CDs in one, in my first purchase, and because they were relatively inexpensive. And so I think I just kind of ranged out. Here's here's the album from 1981, which I believe was later on. Yeah, which we kind of confirmed there because I forgot.
He has so much material that it's hard to figure out which albums you remember.
Then there was Worthless Recluse.
Worthless Recluse.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the other one was Shadowy Graves or something like that. I don't know, something shadows.
Possibly. Yeah. So it was decent cross section. You had like that early, I don't know if you want to call it depressive. I wouldn't call it. I would call it just ingenious. I thought his earliest stuff is the genius stuff, all genius level, whatever that Goldberg guy says. All the early albums are kick-ass. They have their own, totally own vibe. Whereas later albums, he kind of got his shit together and started to sound like a normal project to an extent. A normal weird project, a normal obscure project. Of course, sandwiched in between those, insane spoken word rambling, ramblers. Much like myself. I'm a Jandek in another life because I tend to ramble on.
So I got that stuff from you that you gave me. I thought that sounded great. I bought Blue Corpse, which I want to say is 87.
Okay.
And then just over the years listened to some of his stuff online here and there. And he's just someone has fascinated me for years. So, but to the uninitiated, just to give you a bit of an introduction, this is what Wikipedia has to say. And so, Soggy, what I was saying, even when I read like his Wikipedia page, I get the feeling that he wrote it. I always feel when I'm looking at like the Jandek guide, I'll talk about this later, but the Jandek guide webpage. It's just so much information, so carefully organized that I can't help but think it's him who wrote it, right? And I even felt this way reading his Wikipedia page, but I don't know, just a pet theory I have. But but to give people an idea, right? Jandek is a musical project of Corwood Industries, a record label operating out of Houston, Texas, since 1978, has independently released over 100 albums / DVDs of unusual, often emotionally dissolute folk and blues songs without ever granting any interviews or providing any biographical information, right? So this is part of when I initially read that article about him in Mojo, I heard that, this guy, he puts out albums, but he never does interviews. He never plays live. No one knows his real name. Like just all this mystery surrounding the guy.
Folklore,
yeah. So I was totally drawn into that. Right? Plays.
It sounds like you're accusing him of being some kind of marketing genius.
Oh.
Indirectly.
Well, the only part I would disagree with is the use of the word accusing. Yeah, I mean, I feel to some degree he played us all, but I think it was brilliantly played, you know.
Yeah.
Well, not played us in the I mean, and again, it's just a theory I have, and I think he's the kind of guy that you make up theories about, you know. So
Sure. Well, in the absence, you know, it is truly genius, right? The Residents, is another band we talking about. You know, they have their whole thing. They were a little bit different because they established, you know, an official marketing arm which put out formal statements on behalf of the group, you know, in kind of a, you know, self-aware, humorous style. You know, because, well, basically they represented basically as a comedy band first, or a satirical band first and foremost, whereas Jandek certainly did not. But, you know, in some sense, you know, the Residents, they were marketing geniuses, definitely. And Jandek, a different kind of genius, but yeah. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, you can see, regardless, you can, there, you know, just speaking for myself, and the first, I don't know, that first run of albums that he did, I don't think I've heard all of his earliest albums, but every one of his early albums that I've heard, I honestly feel is totally kick-ass. All of them. And I saw online, you know, that Mr. Goldberg from which magazine?
I don't know. We're gonna have to look at that. So what Soggy is referring to is on the Jandek Guide website. It does post someone named Goldberg who went through all of his albums who just says masterpiece, so-so, shit, almost masterpiece, you know, like someone who is
but a high percentage of minor
masterpieces. Minor masterpiece. But but I mean, really, the realization I'm coming through is everybody has different opinions about different Jandek albums. And if you and I listened to them all, or even if we listened to 10 of them and ranked them, I'm sure we'd probably have completely conflicting top 10 lists. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Well, this album that you chose would not have been the one for me to choose as representative of Jandek. But after, you know, you said this is the album, and I listened to it, and I'm like, hell yeah, this could totally work, because it's totally different than a lot of the stuff that he had done earlier, which I realize that I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but yeah. So I think your choice is quite interesting in and of itself. That, you know, it would simply not at all have been my choice.
Well, I'm a marketing genius.
There you go.
I'm playing the long game, just like Jandek.
Yeah, it'd be good to get him on here and give us a few pointers. What are we doing wrong?
But just to I want to give people an idea of how his music is spoken about, because I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Jandek often plays highly idiosyncratic and frequently atonal form of folk and blues music, often using an open and unconventional chord structure.
And I would
Jandek's music is unique, but lyrics closely mirror the country, blues, and folk traditions of East Texas, right? Fair enough.
And the first part of that I would certainly agree with, as far as his earlier albums, but I felt like the later ones, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
they're more conventional.
Yeah.
So, you know, for better and for worse, but But
Well,
don't worry, it's still Jandek, so no matter how conventional he gets, it still sounds weird as shit.
yeah.
It just sounds weird as
I mean,
shit.
even the spoken word.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially that. That's a whole other bag of hammers, really. Yeah.
And his the name, if you're wondering about his name, what he has said at
But
this point is simply that, well, okay, he originally called he put his first album out under the name The Units, right?
okay.
Yeah, Ready for the House by The Units, even though it was just him. But he he got an angry letter from a band in San Francisco who said that's our name. You can't use it.
Is that actually true though?
Yeah, he had sent it to a because he just paid to have from what I as far as I understand it, he just paid to press his own music and then just sent it around, like sent it around to college radio stations and record stores.
Okay. And this band, the Units, took him to task.
So then he's
like,
like,
your ass.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to change my name. And he said it just happened to be January. And he was talking on the phone to a guy named Decker. And he just
Did you say this band was from San Francisco?
Jandek. The Units. Yeah, the people who challenged the name The Units are from San Francisco.
Well, because that's interesting, because if you know anything about the magazine, you talk about Mojo. For you, the magazine is Mojo. For me, the magazine is Banana Fish. Banana Fish. And in one of the early issues of Banana Fish, which issues from San Francisco, I believe, by Mr. Seymour Glass, who's, in my opinion, one of the greatest writers in the milieu of sound, music, art, and all the rest of it. Still living, currently living writers. The guy's a fucking genius. Yeah, but they were challenged. They were challenged by a local high school whose student body or whatever student newspaper was also called Banana Fish, and they challenged.
Oh, really?
Banana Fish. And Banana Fish is like, we throw in the towel, obviously, yeah, we are not worthy of the name Banana Fish, and we will relinquish this name. But they didn't actually. But it was a fair concession from Banana Fish to admit that the true Banana Fish was this local high school.
So Seymour Glass relinquished the name?
Actually, no, he didn't, but I don't know.
Yeah, you lent me those back in the day. I read some of those.
I don't know, those kind of stories just always make me laugh.
Maybe these are just teenagers whose parents are lawyers in San Francisco or something. But in any way, he abandoned the name The Units, right? He took the name Jandek, January plus Decker, as the story goes, and he has used that name since 1978. Okay. But just to give you an idea of where the album we discussed today falls, in his discography. So I think from what I gather, after he put out Ready for the House, which, some people recommend is his best, which everybody has a different opinion, but about where to start. But it seemed like he put this out and he kind of waited, right? He waited for a few years just to see if there'd be any reaction. He sent it around to college radio stations and whatnot.
Okay, that's yeah, okay, I'll go with that.
He's very methodical. But he got a review. And maybe it wasn't even a good review, but I mean, like, just some magazine somewhere mentioned the album, and he thought, all right, that's all the motivation I need. I'm going to do this, right? So he put the first album out, waited for a couple of years. He got some minor reaction, and then he just locked in and dedicated himself to regularly putting out albums, right? So you see in 81, he puts out.
That now makes sense though when you look at the title Later On, right? Because it was later on. It was 3 years fucking later, which by Jandek standards and by a lot of, you know, active band standards, you basically need to have an album out every freaking year.
Yeah.
From marketing standpoint, right? Yeah. So Later On, it works with what you've just described there, your little scenario.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're not touring and performing, that's an eternity, right? 3 years.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So it's like he put it out just wanting to see if there'd be any reaction at all. And then there was just this small little reaction, and it just inspired him to blast forward for the next number of decades.
I'm just gonna diverge a little bit, but it was just something. I participate in a Facebook group, and someone had mentioned, yeah, this artist, he's not active anymore. The last time he recorded an album for this particular project was 2019. I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, and this is not a young guy, right? But he's like, you know, that's just how it is, right? He hasn't released an album in, you know, 1.5 years. That's a long time. So yeah, you got to just keep pumping this shit out. Otherwise, I don't know, you're not considered active somehow. Whereas, you know, as far as I'm concerned, an album every 8 years, that's active. That's active enough. That's honestly my opinion.
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
Sure. Good stuff.
Yeah. I'm just going to keep coming in with these stupid comments that have no relation to anything. Don't worry.
I'm all for it. But one thing I wanted to mention before he started releasing albums, part of the Jandek folklore is he wrote 7 novels. Have you ever heard this?
No.
He wrote 7 novels that forever how long he was sending to like publishers in New York City. And they were rejected every time. And so he just burnt all 7 of the novels, and like that was that. And then
really?
Yes, it's the story. And then just tested the waters with Ready for the House, got a bit of a reaction, which was all he needed, and then just locked into being Jandek.
All right. Sounds
be interesting to read the novels. But
yeah. Well, you know, they were burnt, right?
Yeah. Legend has it, you know, but you know, the marketing genius.
Maybe Seth knows where those
that story around, and then he'll release the novels later.
I think Seth knows where those novels are hiding.
Seth Tissue.
Yeah, he knows what's going on with those novels.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guy that runs the Jandek Guide website is named Seth Tissue. Like, if that isn't a phony name, I've never heard of it. I think it's our friend Jandek running that, but who knows? I'd be happy to be wrong. So Later On, you and I were a bit of a fan of, with the Janitor and other memorable tracks. 6 and 6, you say you called a masterpiece, right?
Yeah. Like I said, basically, from Later On through, you know, Later On, 6 and 6, Chair Beside a Window. I think Chair Beside a Window is I could choose 6 and 6. I could choose Chair Beside a Window. Those two. And later, I don't know. And just that run of albums, and they're all in the same milieu, so to speak. The style, the vocal stylings, the instrumental stylings, and all the rest of it. That for me really hits a sweet spot. Like that, I really actually like that sound, and I think it's, just it's just perfect, for what it is. And what it is great. So I mean, yeah.
So the album covers are very interesting. There's never any words on the album covers. They're just an image. Sometimes there's something as simple as, right, a chair next to a window. Even though, like, he does stuff like this all the time, right? So this is the cover for Ready for the House is a chair next to the window. The cover of Chair Beside a Window is just a picture of his face, right?
Yeah, but see, chair beside a window is I think quite possibly. I think for me, if you look at the artwork on that, he's sitting in a chair beside a window. That's clear, and it's sullen and it's perfect. It's just, I'm in a chair beside a window. I just keep thinking about Saturday Night Live. I live in a van down by the river. I just keep thinking that.
I'm in a chair beside a window.
But better than that. And really, and it is perfectly matched with 6 and 6 and later on, as far as the whole. Amazing photography.
I mean, once you become interested in his music and start looking at the album covers, you can't help but be fascinated. I don't know, drawn into the simplicity, minimalism of the album covers.
And sorry, keep going. Sorry.
But I mean, I just like this example, that living in a moon so blue. Okay, so some people say this is their favorite. Living in a moon so blue. You have the guitar right in the center, and then staring at the cellophane is just moved over like a few inches, and like it's essentially the same album cover. Like it's just great.
Right.
Minor change.
Except that Goldberg guy really didn't like staring at the cellophane, but I think it's great. It's a great album. I really like all of those albums. I can't see where he went wrong with all of those. Those are just all, they're all audible, auricular perfection.
Well, we should invite Mr. Goldberg for. Are you sure his name is Goldberg? We'll invite him.
That's what it said on the website.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll look at it again. Yeah, then he does a string of album covers that are just scenes from his house. It appears with. Yeah. So after a number of covers that feature his face, now they're just scenes from his house. Sometimes including instruments, sometimes just a desk. But when you look at these images, you get, and because you want to know more about him, it's almost that feeling like when you're watching a documentary about a serial killer or something, and they show pictures from his childhood or something, and like it's you're like scrutinizing like a 10-year-old's face to try to find a hint of what led to him killing his neighbors or whatever.
He certainly looks very, very young in that, the 6 and 6 cover, right? Was it the 6 and 6 cover?
Yeah.
He looks like he's 15 or 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
He could be a bit older.
And it almost looks like it's one of those photo booth ones. Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think that was the first picture I saw of him in Mojo was that. They used that picture for whatever reason. Because it used to be the only pictures of him were the album covers, right? We didn't know his name. Anyways, here we're continuing, right? We have going into 84, right? A picture of a drum set. Looks like just a picture of a house here. I'm just showing all these to lead us up to the album we're going to discuss today, right? Then in 85, he's back on the cover again, sitting in front of his house. 9:30, Follow Your Footsteps. Okay. And leading us forward to Telegraph Melts is 86, right?
Yeah.
And, Blue Corpse, which I mentioned, is one I have. And it does seem to be, I mean, for whatever reason, more discussed than others, right? It's got 18 comments.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering to what extent it is simply the title.
Mm.
You know, like modern dances. If you just saw the name Jandek in modern dances, that would not have any impact whatsoever if you were not familiar with the name Jandek.
Mm.
But if you just saw the title Blue Corpse, come on, you would automatically be drawn to that. Right.
So maybe, I mean, these 18 people.
It gives you this kind of I want to say like in I guess a vibe, almost like an Indian vibe, which kind of, if you look at his earlier albums, they're almost like, you know, the tuning, which is described as unconventional. It's like it's raga like, and people have made the same comment, right? It's like it could be that kind of tuning. And then he comes out with a Blue Corpse, which seems to be a reference to that, although the actual songs in that album don't sound anything like that. But I honestly feel that, you know, it's a weird thing.
Oh, did you freeze up there? Whoa, uh-oh. Oh, let me pause. Okay, so we had some tech problems, but we're back. Soggy was saying that he wonders if Blue Corpse especially got attention because it's kind of snappy.
It's a striking title.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I would say definitely, yeah. Blue Corpse. Could be, especially, yeah, modern dances. I mean, reminds me of Pere Ubu's The Modern Dance from the mid.
I mean, you're not going to say it's the album cover, like, okay, in Blue Corpse he's walking, and in Modern Dances he's standing.
Yeah. But look how similar they are. Like, it's great. It's just the way he just moved the guitar for that one album. This time it's him.
Yeah.
He's just moving his body. But you know, he looks like, if you look
in Modern Dances, you don't move.
When you look at the previous photos, though, he kind of looks like a normal guy up into that point. Now he's walking around town in black jeans and shirtless. You know, he looks starting to look a little intimidating. Would you say?
Yeah. Okay. I guess so. Yeah, that's right.
Right. And a kind of a, you know, like in the picture's kind of blurry, but you know, he does look like he has an evil smile on the front of Blue Corpse also.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
yeah.
Just a moment. Yeah, I'm trying to zoom out of this photo, but I can't at the moment. Just a moment. Okay, yeah, so just to give people an idea. So I chose a rather early album. Well, not really. If you started in 78, it's from 86. So by normal standards, I suppose that would be well into a career. But with him, it was still just kind of the beginning. So I chose his, I think, 11th or 12th album, give or take, right? Telegraph Melts. Interesting title.
Another great cover.
Yeah, I like this cover. I don't think I looked at it closely until today. I always thought he was like standing on the fence, like he was kind of hunched on the fence, like a little, gargoyle or something.
Looks more like he's you know, he sees there's something in the garden moving.
Mm,
like some kind of insect or something
mm.
like that.
A snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, he's shirtless in his black jeans, walking around in his garden with a mullet. I think we can kind of see he has a mullet here.
Yeah. Well, it's less intimidating in this case. I mean, he is clearly in the vicinity of a home.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I think being shirtless in your own yard is a little bit different from, when you seem to be walking around the city.
Yeah. Of course, it is what in Texas. What do they say? Houston. I don't know. East Texas.
East Texas.
If I have my geography right.
They mean business in East Texas.
I mean, a shirtless, mulleted guy in 1986 Texas was not rare. It's probably not rare in 2021 Texas.
No, I doubt it. Yeah.
But if you look at this quickly too, it almost looks like so he's behind the fence on the ground squatting down, but it can almost look like he's floating above the fence.
I suppose.
Which would have been a cool effect. But
well, of course the title is Telegraph Melts. So could it be that he's got some cables running under the ground and they've melted? Anyway, sorry.
Who knows?
Every album is literal. When he said blue corpse, there actually was a blue corpse, hanging around. Okay.
But again, when you start getting into his music, these album, when you can't read interviews with him or see videos by him or whatever, like your only thing to go on is just these pictures on the album cover. And yeah, they're fascinating, right?
Yeah.
And the back of the albums always look the same, right? It's the same like setup with the this exact setup. The titles listed exactly like this, right?
Classic.
The name, the album, his name, the songs listed, the Corwood Industries P.O. Box. And even if there are clearly other musicians on the album, they are not listed, right? Which, but I guess he does say Jandek is not him, it's the name of the project, right? So
right.
I guess that's fair enough. But
The fly. No soul.
Well, shall we play a track? I mean, especially for uninitiated people who have never heard.
And I'd like you to do a little intro, Dave, on this track that you're choosing. So what's your track choice?
Okay. Yeah, and part of the reason I chose this album today is because I wanted to say a bit about the song "You Painted Your Teeth."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because for years, what I had thought the song was about, and it must have been it could have been this very post, which I found again today, that I thought was fascinating. You Painted Your Teeth. The song is most likely about or inspired by the Radium Girls. Do you know anything about the Radium Girls?
No.
So in the early 20th century, girls that worked in a factory that made glow-in-the-dark watch faces. So, okay, would paint their teeth, right? So they had this radium paint, right? And they would just, they're young girls working in a factory, they'd start goofing around with it, like painting their teeth, painting their nails, right? And it turned out that radium was poison and the women died from exposure, right?
Yeah. Wow.
It's an
interesting
story. So I recently listened to a podcast about it, coincidentally.
Really?
Yeah. What's it called? Something Unusual. It's one of my favorite podcasts. Something. Okay. I'm forgetting the first word. Blah blah blah. Unusual. But anyways, they talked about Radium Girls in a recent episode, And
Okay.
yeah, it
Interesting.
used to be they would like recruit the girls that had the steadiest hand, right, from the factory. And they would paint, they would use this radium paint to paint the hands on watches, like wrist watches. But the way they would
Okay.
train them is to wet the paintbrush in their mouth,
Really?
yeah, to make it, the point.
Wow.
Oh, quite unusual, I think is the name of the podcast. But they would, yeah, so they would lick the paintbrush every time before they did it, right? And then there's
Wow.
stories about them goofing around with this glow in the dark paint, putting it on their nails, putting it on their teeth. And like all of these girls got sick and died, right? So it was like a big
Wow.
story at the time. Factories in, let's see, it was New Jersey. I wrote this down somewhere like, New Jersey, Illinois, and Connecticut.
Amazing.
And so I had read that's what this song was about. So I always thought that was interesting. And he doesn't allude to it exactly in the lyrics, but it kind of, when he says, you painted your
Yeah.
teeth, you think you're fine, but you're going to die. You got to die, right?
Yeah.
His great imagery, 6 black horses and a coal black hearse. Okay. You're going to go to heaven. Everything's going to be white, white, baby, but not your teeth. You painted your teeth. So I thought it was about the Radium Girls. So keep that in mind, and we'll listen to the track because.
Okay. Nice intro.
Yeah. Just a second. Okay, so this is the track. It's on the second side. Track 10 overall. You painted your teeth. Mm.
Yeah, that's a hell of a song, man. That's great.
Let me kill that.
He gets pretty worked up, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
gets like a lot more worked up than he does in a lot of other songs about the fact that they, you've painted your teeth.
That seems to upset him, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's an upsetting thing. Well, it is a tragic story if indeed this song does have anything to do with that tragic story. Yeah.
And there of course, you notice drums. So I guess he has said that he does do some tracking, but I like to think for like that song, I would like to think that, he's got his neighbor or whoever banging away on the drums, right? And they're just recording it live. Right. I would hope. I don't know why. Well, I mean, there's a woman who sings on this album, right? So it's that's clearly not him. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter, but somehow I like to picture it him and another guy banging away at the song. Well, what do you think? Or do you think he drums and overdubs it?
Yeah,
or does it not matter?
Who knows? A person with greater expertise than me would be the person to ask, but I don't know shit.
I like the idea that he just occasionally just involves these random people and
right.
They don't even get credited. But
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't think he could get a professional drummer to do that. That's just a guy blasting away on the drums as best he can. He or she can.
Yeah, I don't it doesn't sound like he hired a professional drummer to do that. I will say that. Yeah.
Maybe it's the woman who sings on the album.
Yeah. I thought that was his mom.
And it's different from the woman who so there's a female voice on this album, but it's not the same female voice. What's the really beautiful female voice? Is it Nancy Sings? Or
yeah.
Nancy Sings? No, what album is that? The track is just called Nancy Sings, where a woman.
Yes. You've got me there.
Fair enough. I thought you might just know.
Nancy Sings. Wait. It's not this album?
No. It's no. But one thing that's interesting about that, okay, so that's toward the end of the album, right? You painted your teeth. But then it's toward the end of Telegraph Melts. You painted your teeth. But the first track on Modern Dances is called Painted My Teeth. And and it sounds like a bit of a a continuation of the song. So I wonder if they just like recorded some long track and cut it into two tracks.
Well, or they could just be just different takes of the same song, right?
Yeah, I feel like they don't line up perfectly, but I mean they
okay.
Yeah. And that's the one that on a Jandek so there's been 2 Jandek tribute albums. And on the first one, they do a version of, that Modern Dances track, Painted My Teeth. And it's a band called Dapper that includes Thurston Moore. So it's some like side project of Thurston Moore.
Okay.
Or maybe they just recruited him but whatever he does.
Yeah.
He plays on a cover of this. And it's not surprising that he's a Jandek fan.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right up his alley. Okay, but according to this guy, so this, if you look at this thing about, this song is probably about the Radium Girls. This was 2011, right, on the Song Meanings website. But then 7 years later, this guy chimes in that Jandek mentioned in Wire magazine. So and I'm sure many of you are asking, wait, I thought he never gave interviews. But yeah, the story does progress. But he got a big, he was on the cover of Wire magazine. Okay. Confirms this is just a silly song inspired by actors who'd whiten their teeth for a role, right? So it sounded like it wasn't, it wasn't some like profound historic moment he was commenting on, apparently. But the lyrics say if you paint your teeth, you're going to die, right? Like, so, I don't know. I think I still like to think of it as a Radium Girls song. I don't know. What's
right.
What's your take on it? I wish I could have seen, well, I tried to find that Wire
Refuse
interview.
to speculate. Yeah.
But
respectfully refuse to speculate too much. The latter explanation is more consistent with the MO, with Jandek. I would say. Yeah.
And by that you mean him not referencing things outside of his sphere, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But interestingly enough, on Blue Corpse, there's a cover of he does a cover song of House of the Rising Sun.
Oh yeah?
Which, I mean, I probably listened to 5 times before I looked at the track. I'm like, that's supposed to be that's supposed to be House of the Rising Sun. And I think it might even be an instrumental. So I don't know. He doesn't often reference things outside of his, his furniture, his own sphere. But he does sometimes. I mean, he mentioned House of the Rising Sun. Okay, and Jason, as Soggy, as I'm sure you know, and people who know me would know, that the reason why this phrase has a special meaning for me, painted your teeth, is that I used this name as the name of my live event, which I've been doing in Tokyo since 2009, which we are now on hiatus because of COVID. But the way, and I wanted to choose kind of an interesting, mysterious, but not overly so,
right.
And words that, probably people of various backgrounds, even if they weren't English speakers, would probably have at least some knowledge of some of these words. And I don't know, when I was desperately looking for a name for the event, I went to that Jandek guide and I think pulled up a list of all his thousands of songs and just started reading through them until something caught my attention, and I used that as the name of the event.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard that.
Yeah.
So exclusive.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested, this is the Facebook page. This is the YouTube page. If you want to watch some videos from past events, it's experimental music and performance art, among other things, some garage rock thrown in, right? Soggy's been there a few times, right? Though it's been a while.
It has, yes. Yeah.
But we'll be up and running again in 2022, I hope.
All right.
But
hope so.
That's why I feel a special connection to that song, which is, I suppose, why I chose this album. But but I'm more than happy to comment on other songs.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that jumps out about that song, and maybe every other song on this album as well, it's just just how much more upbeat it is than a lot of the stuff that he had done prior, which was kind of, that was my go-to for Jandek, that much more on the down low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minimalist, brooding stuff.
Brood. Yeah, there's the word that we should be using. There's a lot of brood in a lot of his earlier stuff, and this one just doesn't have the brood. It has almost maybe some anger in it, or some angst, and a lot more energy. There's a lot more. Like I said, he sounds like he's getting worked up about these people painting their teeth.
Yeah. Getting worked up is a lot on the first side too. It sounds so I want to say it is another guy. I think it's him, another guy playing the drums, and that woman.
Okay.
I guess the woman could just be a drum, but there are times where it sounds to me like two or three people on the first side, two or three people who are trying to like will themselves into being some like scary religious cult or something. They're just like repeating things and chanting things and just banging away like it. I don't know. There's like a very like determined desperation to it, which I mean, like you painted your teeth kind of turns into that too, right? Turns into like a chanty tribal thing almost, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's what he was what he was trying to do with this particular album.
Make it tribal.
What would I don't know? Can you? Would you say tribal is a fair word? I mean, to me, it, like on the first half, it does sound like the kind of like scary religious kind of snake handling type people, backwoods stuff, right? At certain moments.
Okay, I can get that. I did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, when you were saying
they're definitely possessed with something.
Well, when you were saying before that you weren't sure if this album was a good choice to introduce Jandek, but then your thoughts changed a bit as you listened to it. What do you mean exactly?
Yeah, well, I mean, just for me, when I think Jandek, I think of really the earliest stuff. So, with all of his earlier albums, he has a particular vocal delivery, and particular tuning of the guitar that just sounds, when you put it all together, it just sounds, completely other. And maybe people had done that kind of thing prior and during and after. But he did it just really, really well, in my opinion. And on this album, what's the title again?
Telegraph Melts.
Telegraph Melts, yeah. So come this album, it's like, I don't know, he wants to, completely reinvent the project, He's seen the light. Can I hear an amen? I don't know. Like he's getting all worked up. He's quite excitable. The music is it's rocking. It's honky tonkin'. He sounds like he's got other people in on it now after all these years. He's persuaded other people to join him. And they're making a go of being a proper, a proper rock band, but basically a proper band. And whereas in the earlier ventures, you would definitely say that is a solo gig, a solo thing. one dude. It's one guy's vision, which I like, which I really like. Whereas this stuff, he's moving on to an attempt to I don't know, an attempt to move on to greater, brighter pastures. So and I think from there on out, and possibly earlier albums as well, I'm not an expert, I would say that was more the direction that he headed in and continues to head in. So he decided he's going to be a band and do real, good old rock and roll.
See, but I don't know. No, I mean, I haven't listened to enough of that stuff to know, because I agree with you that my image of him, is more, solo, brooding, slow, right? So, so this is kind of playing with those expectations to some degree,
I guess. Probably good reference points would be the albums immediately preceding and anteceding this one, which I don't even know what those might be.
So Soggy, you let me get away with this. Did you notice how huge this number is?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
No. I changed the number. I wanted to see if you'd call me out on it.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm honored that you did it.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So modern dance. Yeah, but like Blue Corpse is already, I'm not sure about modern dances now, but Blue Corpse is already pretty minimal, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he just, on occasion in all these string of albums, at certain points, he just blasts out a bunch of energy and then gets back to his long game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess what we're learning is that he has so much material that it's hard to even concisely talk. Well, but that's why we're focusing on one album, anyways. Well, a couple other tracks I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Immediately following that, the Mother's Day card, right?
Yeah.
So
that one stands out.
Yeah. So you certainly do just what he does with titles and covers and stuff. You do occasionally get the idea that maybe this guy has a sense of humor, right? But on Mother's Day card, I don't think you cannot deny that this is meant to be funny in some way, right? Because it sounds, it's the same kind of threatening sound, threatening two or three people that sound angry, and but these are the lyrics to the song, which they might have taken directly from a Hallmark Mother's Day card.
Yeah.
Would you think?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Thanks for being you, Mom, and happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Making others happy is such a part of you. You're always kind and thoughtful in everything you do.
It's the message down the telegraph.
That's why this message
for it melts and gets all weepy.
Could be. So I think it's fair to say this guy has a sense of humor, right? As earnest as he sounds sometimes, it's just hard to imagine that this is a sincere letter to his mom, right?
Yeah. Well, when you hear him deliver it, he sounds at intervals sardonic. He even laughs out loud at one point, when he's delivering the lyrics. So,
Well, I feel like we should play it for our listeners, huh?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
All right. Okay, so let's listen to the track Mother's Day Card.
Okay.
Making others happy, Mom, is such a part of you. You're always kind and thoughtful in everything you do. That's why this special message comes with love to say, thanks for being you, Mom, and happy Mother's Day. Making others happy, Mom, is such a part of you. You're always kind and thoughtful in everything you do. That's why this special message comes with love to say, thanks for being you, Mom, and happy Mother's Day.
Damn, that sounds like it was inspired by the Fugs. By
Yeah.
the way, have you done the Fugs yet?
No, we'll do a Fugs
You
episode.
got to do the Fugs, man.
Yeah. And you're right. It does. That
The Fugs with a little mix of Monty Python, if you know any of some of the classic. Do you know the song "I Like Traffic Lights" by Monty Python?
No. Is it similar to this? Fugs.
Well, it has the similar level of mockery. It's deliberately out of tune, deliberately not in sync. I like traffic lights. I like traffic lights. I like traffic lights. That is what I said. That's what he said. I like traffic lights. I like traffic lights. I like traffic lights, but not when they are red.
Did you hear?
He
There was
likes
a very
traffic lights. He
Jason,
likes. All right.
there was a very.
This song totally reminds me of that.
Was there a very distant harmonica there?
Yeah, well, he had a pretty cool, like, kind of jazzy drum going on. That was pretty cool, right?
Huh.
Like a little bit of the snare going on. It was like,
and I think he is layering.
The song is actually a really cool song. Actually, he kind of milks it a little bit too much.
It was only 2 minutes though. So
yeah, he kind of milks a little bit too much. In that sense, it would kind of remind me of another person who I would describe as a bit of a Jandek, who kind of reminds me of Jandek to an extent, Michael Girard of the Swans. None of the Swans sounds anything like Jandek until Michael Girard dissolved the Swans, and then he started up a relatively short-lived project, sandwiched in between Swans 1 and Swans 2, called Angels of Light.
yeah.
And the first Angels of Light album had songs that, could be, I could not imagine them as not having been influenced by Jandek, or if they were not influenced by Jandek, another artist who would have been similar to Jandek. But these songs were recorded, like maybe 1990 something, 96.
You gave me like 2 or 3 of those. You burned me Yeah, they were great.
Angels of Light. Yeah, hell
I have
yeah.
to revisit those. Yeah.
Honestly, people talk about the heaviest Swans album. Well, I mean, sonically speaking, without question, Public Castration is a good idea. Is the heaviest goddamn shit ever. But I will honestly say that the first Angels of Light album crushes Public Castration. It's just so heavy, emotionally, conceptually, and it's just such a perfect album, man. It's such an overlooked album, and it's, in my opinion, the best thing that Jura ever did, which was the first Angels of Light album, which had two tracks. Two tracks that sound like that kind of sound like Jandek.
Maybe that's why you burned it for me. Yeah, because I remember really digging it, but I gotta go back.
Yeah. But that said, I mean, yeah, that is an amazing song, to be honest, that he would just throw that in there. Like, what the hell was he thinking? But nah.
See, but then looking at the next song, I won't play all these songs, but just the
why not?
The lyrical diversity. So here we have the Mother's Day card. Yeah, but then the next track, Fly, he talks about going to the graveyard, going to dig up a dead man, right? And the way he says,
"Say, Buster, where's your wife?"
Yeah.
"Say, I kissed a girl last Sunday."
Yeah, like how it's, the lines are getting pretty creepy,
"Cops are pumping, Buster. Where do you work?"
I like this bit about
these lyrics are amazing.
Yeah. It was a 10-gallon hat, and I could do without that. Yeah, it's
what was that? That line sounds like it's straight out of Dr. Seuss. It was a 10-gallon hat. I can do without that. Green eggs and ham.
Yeah. So yeah. So
would you?
They seem
in a
kind
boat?
Of innocuous.
Would you
going to the
with
graveyard.
A goat?
With
a goat? Would you with a goat? Sorry.
No, but you're right. It does have that sort of playful, rhymey. It was a 10-gallon hat, and I could do without that. This is a cool song too.
There's a zipper on my zipper, and a snuffleupagus on my huffleupagus. Why is there a sluggalos on my mockalos when there's a cops or pumping Buster in my
hopefully
something duster?
Soggy, hopefully we've given people some idea, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've really skated around this album. Like, you don't want to touch it. Like, it's this delicate thing. And we haven't really gotten into the nuts and bolts of it, which is fine. And I feel that one of the reasons that we don't is just because of the reputation, just because he's so goddamn legendary. And it's kind of intimidating trying to come in and approach Jandek and make a comment, because he's, at this point, I would say he's one of the most commented, obscure, outsider artists at this point. He's almost no longer an outsider. So mission accomplished, Jandek. But it's really, like, you can get into this stuff, but then you would feel like when you hear something like what was that what was the title again of the song we just listened to?
I think it's called Mother's Day Card.
Mother's Day Card, right? You listen to that, and it's hard not to see this as an artist that is either A, mocking himself, B, mocking the listener, or mocking someone. But it's high Donicism, if that can be a word. You know, like what is that shit?
I mean,
Like, it would be a great Monty Python or a great funk song.
I think even his album covers are a mockery. I mean, a picture of a, you know, like think how much.
Maybe Jandek is actually a psychological experiment on popular culture. You could say the same about, like, for example, The Residents.
Sure.
You know.
I mean, what other artist could get away with just putting a picture of a desk? Like some just, you know, that one album
Well,
cover.
What do you mean? What other artists?
Picture of a white desk against a white wall, right? And a chair next to a window, like, and to name an album, you know, chair beside a window.
Chair next to a window. Honestly speaking, to me, I don't know about you, but to me, the title "Chair Next to a Window" speaks to me. This was Jandek at his lowest point.
Yeah, lower than Blue Corpse.
Yes.
Or Worthless Recluse. Come on.
No. Chair next to a window. That I feel that honestly for me is a visionary album, but that's just for me. I just feel that he tapped into something like a kind of I don't know, just a pure, you know, we use the word brood. It's like a purity of the brood, you know. Brood is not actually a genre, but it should be. And if it were, Chair Next to a Window would be right up there, you know. There are a lot of other albums that could be way up there, you know, like Penderecki could be right up there with some of his choral works, for example, if you know what I'm talking about. But Jandek, Chair Next to a Window, brood. That's what he does, man. It's like some of the best brood I've heard.
Well, for you to say it influenced Michael Gira is actually a pretty big deal, because Gira's a pretty influential guy himself, right?
I don't know that that's true, right? Like I just say that because when I heard, because I actually heard the Angels of Light album before I heard Jandek, right? So when I heard Jandek, those early albums, I'm like, shit, this is like what Gira was doing, but it's better. And it's like, you know, like 15 years earlier. It's like, shit.
And there are 20 albums of it. Yeah.
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 I don't know. He perfected a certain atmosphere, you know. And I've got an album here. If I can get my aim right there.
Yeah, sure.
This album right here.
Uh-huh.
This is an Italian group by the name of Einsof. Einsof. Now if any band could be said to have perfected brood, it would be these guys. They were like the Italian occult version of Jandek. You know, like no one would ever have accused them of being particularly talented, musically speaking, and yet they are hugely influential in their weird way, and they have this weird atmosphere. And I don't know, it's the purity of the brood. Now, the music of this project, at least at that point, now from 1990s, they totally changed, but at that album time, I believe that was 1985, 86. So around the time of Telegraph Melts,
Mm.
they were recording, Brood that was, on the same level or same wavelength to an extent.
So
I don't know.
people who we know are fans, right? Who were on the tribute albums or appear in the documentary, right? That documentary used to be on YouTube, that Jandek on Corwood, but now it's gone. But
Oh,
but I
really?
find
No,
that-
I think I never actually saw that.
I find that with a lot
Now I
of
feel like
Jandek
an idiot.
stuff, it comes and goes on the internet, and I'm just wondering if that's him doing it. I don't know why I think that so strongly. Like everything that happens, I think. I
He's
just think he's
behind it.
yeah, like he puts it out for a while, then he takes it away. Like I don't know who knows, but that's beside the point. But Calvin
Well,
Johnson.
there might be a certain calculation. He might even actually base it on the,
Calvin
the
Johnson
stars.
from Beat Happening, and he started K Records in Olympia, Washington.
Okay.
He's a huge Jandek fan. He's on that documentary, right? Talking, about how much he loves Jandek. We mentioned Thurston Moore is on that one tribute album. And then they're putting out a second tribute album, right? Like, I mean, that's how much people want to pay tribute to Jandek. And the second tribute album has, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco is on it. Kawabata Makoto from Acid Mother's Temple is on it. Ockerville River. We're gonna have to get into the fact that Jandek did finally make a public appearance at one point after years of not doing so. And but since he started performing, we're gonna get into that a bit. But I mean, you saw that list of people he's collaborated with, right? Thurston Moore, John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats, Mike Watt. So you recognized a bunch of names on that list. Well, so we'll look at that list of people he's performed with. But I mean, just the point is that like these are people who would not. I don't think they take it lightly, like to be on tribute albums and to perform with. I mean, I think he's genuinely highly respected in.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Without question. Without question.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like for me, honestly speaking, like I'm not being facetious at all. That first string of maybe the very first album was interesting, but we can blip over that and start from later on and just go from there. Like for the straight, like a roll of 6 or more albums, I felt those were all like perfect. Like I feel those are all, I don't know, they're totally kick ass. Like
the sound and the vibe of it and the presence of it, right? But also the lyrics to some, like we were talking about that janitor song. Like, I mean, I mean, like really, really intense, vivid, strange lyrics, right?
Right.
But not strange in like a trying too hard kind of way, right?
Yeah.
But that's what's I don't know. It's like just a slightly off, slightly creepy kind of
yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay.
But to continue with his story, well, Jason, if you want to say something.
Oh, please. It's okay. Yeah.
But just to move forward with his story, right? So he starts in 78, sending albums around, little by little, his reputation starts to spread. And finally, what blew everyone's mind in 2004, and remember, so for all these years, at first the word was, he never gave an interview, or he only gave one interview. Okay, which I think that's interesting, Jason, that's still how when you first come to that Wikipedia page, it still seems like it wants to keep that intact, right? Jandek is a musical project, but it still says here, like, he never grants interviews or performs. I mean, that hasn't been true for almost 20 years, right? But it's still like, this is his Wikipedia page now, right? So anyone who was trying to like honestly present him, like this is still clinging to the original mystery, you know, which leads me to believe that he wrote his Wikipedia page, or or he just has all these like fans that just love the you know, love the mystique and want to keep it intact, and maybe they don't believe that that guy who appeared on stage in Scotland in 2004 was actually him. But
and here's my secondary theory, which is it's quite possible that the guy making the music and the guy marketing the project, there might be two different people. I know you reject that.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to agree with you than to agree with me, if that makes any sense. But I want to leave that possibility hanging, that it's, you know, it's quite an undertaking, and it could all be one dude, but it could be that there's another person who is more, shall we say, I don't know, hip to the business, so to speak, who just handles that side of it, the business side of it.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I see the same personality that runs through everything. I'm going to say.
Like I said, I'm more inclined to agree with you, but I just want to leave that as a get out of jail free card, because it just seems to be granting this guy too many superpowers.
You know, but no, I mean, you see it as this huge, like, time-consuming endeavor. But
you're saying that because of the amount of intervening years, you feel that it's not that heavy for the number of years that are involved.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if my father put more time into his garden than Jandek has put into being Jandek over the years, up until 2004. I don't know.
If you're willing to date the project back to 1978, I would have to concede defeat.
Well, let's say 78 to 2004, because once he goes public, then everything changes.
Let's say from later on, because I don't know, it seems something happened, and let's say from later on was the real beginnings of the project.
Okay, 81. Yeah, but you can't disregard that first.
Either way,
right? People love that first album, right?
Yeah. Either way.
Anyway, all right, just to set the stage for this, for years, like even like when I first heard about him in 2000, our understanding, the guy never performs, no one knows his name. We think he lives in Texas. He never gives interview. I think at the time there was, he gave one interview, you know, which was only like, 2 minutes long or something. But actually now that interview is available, the 1985 interview. You could listen to it in its entirety on YouTube. It's like 45 minutes long, and he seems like a down-to-earth guy in the interview.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, up until the early 2000s, he was still very much considered, very mysterious. But okay, in 2004, he showed up at a fest. Oh, and Jason, I think your pal David Tibet was involved in this festival in 2000.
Oh, yeah. There was, David Tibet had an anecdote about Jandek, but I forget it. Unfortunately, I apologize. So it was something like, but basically David Tibet in his anecdote really played up the played up on the idiosyncrasy of Jandek. Like in his anecdote, it was like nobody talks to him. It was just, sorry, like honestly, I read David Tibet's account of this quite a few years ago. So
Sure.
but yeah, his account was consistent with the mythology, shall we say. And I don't know if David Tibet was just recognizing in that a kindred spirit of a guy who's great at self-marketing and was really happy to promote the myth. But you know, the story that he told certainly did a lot to shall we say, I don't know if it did a lot, but it didn't do anything to just to lessen the legend.
Well, I mean, the story, part of the story is that, you know, they weren't even allowed to promote. I mean, I think David Tibet was part of one of the organizers of the festival. They weren't allowed to announce that, oh, Jandek is coming. Like that it was not announced.
That's right. That's
like
right.
he just played somehow, and I think he wasn't even on the bill. When he absolutely had to be referred to, he was referred to as, what's the word he uses? A representative of Corwood Industries, his record label, which is him.
It's coming back to me now. Yeah. So okay, you read this recently, obviously.
Yeah. And I remember when it happened, because it was like just mind blowing. Like, oh my God, because I mean, first off, we thought he was never going to perform, but the fact that after all those years, the first concert took place in Scotland was another. I mean, you thought the guy could never leave his neighborhood in Texas, right? That was part of his image, right? Like maybe he goes outside to get the mail like once every 3 weeks or something, right? And like suddenly he's in Scotland on stage perform. I mean, like that was totally mind blowing, right? And I don't know. It seemed like he just timed everything perfectly. Like since he finally comes out, okay, now he's Jandek. He's toured. He's played with all these amazing musicians. I mean, like he's just pulled the whole thing off, right?
Yeah.
Just to look at his tour history since then, since his big debut in 2004. Just a moment, please. Okay, so this is Jandek's concert history since suddenly appearing after, what is that, 26 years? Wait. Yeah. After 26 years of being, you know, this legendary outsider, worthless recluse, right? So we had this idea that he was, you know, this person who never left his garage or his house. Suddenly he's playing festivals in Europe, right? Being referred to as a representative. Should I blow this up a bit? But you said you recognize a lot of these names as
Richard Youngs is he's a big name in the
okay,
in the cool music.
Oh really?
Milieu. Well, yeah.
So he played with them on that first gig in
and you know, or just jumping down Alan Leaked, you know. And these are guys who are more on my side of the pond, musically speaking. We're talking more into the noise or experimental.
So you recognize a few of these names, but so I mean, he starts in Scotland, then he plays a show in Austin. That must have been amazing, huh? And then he goes to Manhattan, goes to New York, right?
Chris Corsano, like holy fuck.
I mean, but
this is like a super all-star cast of you know, alternative, experimental, whatever. Where, you know, every name is
so he played the Empty Bottle. I used to go to this place when I lived in Chicago.
Brian Jones.
The Empty Bottle, but with John McIntyre from Tortoise, right?
Was that John McIntyre from Tortoise?
From Tortoise, yeah.
What was that? Tortoises, John McIntyre.
What do you mean?
Well, there is more than one John McIntyre who's well known.
Well, this Chicago though. Tortoise is a Chicago band. I did
Okay.
read like that
Okay,
is
okay,
yeah, that's
okay,
Tortoise
okay.
for that's the guy. Wait,
Okay.
Brian Jones, I'm blanking on. Who is that? Oh,
No, I was joking.
oh,
on
you were
that.
joking.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not the Brian Jones who died in 1968 or whatever. But you do see as you go down this list, yeah, as I mentioned,
C. Spencer, yeah, like fuck, hell yeah.
and yeah, he's playing a lot in Europe.
David Keenan.
He does a long run in Australia, which you would think he would have come to Japan during that time, but
he plays with David Keenan a lot. Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, since he's finally come out, he's been like a total. And like one thing I heard is that these shows are different styles, just like his albums, right? Like sometimes it's a completely different style. I don't know. The one thing I was listening to, they said he even did like a funk show one time or something. Like he's just totally.
That's totally believable because all these musicians they're in totally different musical. I mean, they're in the weird music vicinity, but all these people are doing very different music, very, very, very different music.
And they all want to play with Jandek, right?
Of course they do. Who wouldn't want to play with Jandek? No, seriously, who wouldn't?
Yeah, I did. Somehow
I don't want to play with that guy.
But the guys I mentioned before, Thurston Moore, etc., yeah, are on this list somewhere. We kind of blasted through the list. But yeah, he's played up to 2019. He was playing in Brooklyn, late 2019, so just before COVID, right? So he's yeah, in late 2019 he was in the Netherlands. So he's
2019 he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shows in 2019, right? That's it's quite a lot, right?
And he's yeah, I mean, who knows what you can believe about him, but apparently he's well, he's certainly not young. I've seen him referred to as 75 years old.
Sorry?
I've seen him referred to as 75, being 75 years old.
Okay. Okay. No reason to disbelieve that.
Yeah. I mean, well, if the first album's 78, he had to be at least 20 then. So yeah, we're getting, well.
But I would still like the 6 and 6 album, if that was a current photo, he doesn't look like he's in his 30s. He looks like he's in his teens, right?
Yeah, but also even later albums, he's
teens, 70s, then he would not be in his 70s now. He'd be in his 60s.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, but remember, he wrote 7 novels before he released his 78 debut. So maybe he was closer to 30.
Who even knows when those pictures were taken?
Yeah.
If even they are of him.
See, that's what I was going to say, Jason. He toys with those too. He'll put up a picture of himself looking 25, and then his next album will be a picture of himself looking 15, and then the next one he'll look like he's 40 or something. Like he's totally toying with that too.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to say, Jason, is that, this is Jandek's concert history, and you can see it's so meticulously organized that I'm going to say I think the man himself did this, right? and the other website we had mentioned before, the that is
is there no other person credited with
maintained by this guy is what's his first name? Seth Tissue. Okay.
Well, Seth is the ultimate cowboy name, right?
Seth.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it is. This is not a joke. If you're gonna be a cowboy, you got to start with the name Seth.
But Jason, I'm going to say this page, when I started looking at it years ago, when I first started
Yeah, like look at this picture, right? Like
Yeah.
this he looks like he's like 14 in this picture.
All right. And Jason, look, this says this picture is taken by Seth Tissue. That's clearly him, right? There's, I mean, yeah. Okay.
His dad.
I'm going to say this is Jandek, who's been maintaining this, right, meticulously documented, website of himself, because it's so well organized, just information, that to me it seems very purposeful, like not something a just random fan would do, right? And yeah, the fact that he has so much information about how much the albums cost, how to order them. So I think,
all right, enough.
Yeah. Anyway,
you made your case.
That's my. But anyways, this is what he looked like when he started playing, right? Kind of gaunt, black hat, right?
Yeah.
Wow, look here again. All these dates are listed. So
we should probably overlap him with that. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry.
So it's cool, that after all these years of obscurity, he just suddenly shows up and say, "No, here I am." Joke's over, and kind of begins a whole second career as a live performer, right? This is him on the cover of Wire in 2014, right?
Right.
And a lot of the material he's released since then have been live albums, right? Just named after the different locations where he's played. Let me see if I could grab that list because it's kind of interesting. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned the Fugs, right? So of course, yeah, there are elements of the Fugs. I listened to this podcast today, pretty good, called Eclectic Obsessions, where he did an episode about Jandek. And he really stressed the point that it doesn't sound like anything I ever heard before, except the Fugs and the Gods. And I think he means the Gods from New York City. There were two bands called the Gods. The New York City band from the mid-'60s were more experimental, while the Columbus, Ohio Gods were kind of rock. Yeah, but this guy mentions the Fugs and the Gods. But one song that I just happened to hear a few years ago that I thought, wow, this really sounds like Jandek would a few years later. I'm just curious, what do you think? Give me a second.
Okay.
No, I was saying that guy today said he could see the Fugs or possibly the Gods. And so you brought up the Fugs again today, and we're going to talk about the Fugs in the future. But yeah, the last track. So I'm sure you've heard this album before. Noise debut album. They're like a seminal krautrock band. But of course, the last song on the album, Lieber Honig. I'm not sure what it's about, but yeah, I always got a Jandek vibe from here. Not so much the stuff we listened to today, but more like the kind of typical, one-man show Jandek type stuff. I don't know. Just let me know what you think. Just listen. What do you think? Little bit?
Honestly speaking,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Really? Mm-hmm. Like to
But
me,
uh,
that
but uh,
sounded
but
like
honestly speaking,
Mhm.
real talk.
Yeah.
I I I totally see where you're coming from, because yeah. I mean, there are totally elements of that where I can say that could overlap on some level with Jandek, but honestly, I still feel that Jandek had his own vibe, his own thing.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you want to compare, you want to say blah 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 is influencing blah blah blah.
I'm not even know if I'm saying that he ever heard that. Like
Yeah.
maybe Noy just kind of wandered into that territory coincidentally.
Well, to be honest, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's interesting territory, but it's not. I think it's territory that a lot of people can wander into. I don't feel that. I honestly feel that Jandek did it right and did it very well. But on the other hand, I do feel that there is a lot of possibility for other bands to realize the same thing. I don't think that the actual sound that he found was that different from. And in fact, I would even go so far as to say there may have been a lot of artists and bands that were doing similar stuff, but just he did it. He released the album. He did it. And as for these German krautrock guys, yeah, they did something similar, but it's not similar enough for me to be persuaded. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I should mention, by the way, that we do, I guess, officially know now that his name is Sterling Smith. Sterling Richard Smith. Even this picture is hilarious. Like this is YouTube photo. He's like halfway down the block, sitting in a chair, staring straight ahead, sitting on a bench.
Sitting in a chair,
yeah,
down by the river.
Yeah. Like he could have an album named Bench next to the parking lot, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So whatever. I think
a perfect album cover.
He's fascinating to listen to. He's fun to talk about. His whole history and the way he pulled this all off fascinates me. Yeah,
I like your choice of words, though. The way he pulled this all off.
Okay. No. What I mean,
come on. I mean, it's when you say something like that, it sounds like you're very doubtful of the man's.
No. What I mean by that is
genius.
He wasn't.
He is a fucking genius.
He wasn't touring. He wasn't doing interviews. He wasn't shaking his ass. He wasn't doing all the things that every other performer artist feels they have to do to get success. Like he didn't do any of that. And by the time he finally took the stage in 2004, he was like the darling of the underground, or whatever you'd like to call him, right? Like, I mean, when I say pull it off, I mean the fact that he could go from his garage or wherever he was to stages all around the world and have, like, high level musicians cover his material and want to play with him and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, another huge fan of his is that
when you put it like that,
yeah.
Yeah, you win.
That's what I mean, because there's a lot of, people that make great music for years that never get their due, right? But this guy,
Sure.
he kind of pulled it off.
Yeah.
And while making very challenging music, right? To
Yeah.
the average listener, right? So this guy's a hero. He's an American hero.
He is. He's definitely a hero, and he's an American hero. What do you think about that? America! Fuck yeah!
Texas even.
Yeah.
But
He's Texas.
but I guess he was partially raised in Rhode Island.
Oh yeah?
Some people have speculated. All right, Jason. Well, let's move towards wrapping this up.
Okay.
Mr. Soggy, you have a song in mind to go out. Let me see if I'm done with the slides. Yeah. I'd be happy to talk about a Noi album someday if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so that was it. All right.
Okay.
Episode 41. Jandek's Telegraph Melts, which I just mentioned off camera. One of our earlier episodes, we did Jim Shepard's band V3. The name of the album is Photograph Burns. I wonder if he was inspired by this album. Telegraph Melts, Photograph Burns.
When was Photograph Burns?
94. 94.
What?
Yeah, so 8 years later. No, I'm saying maybe Jim Shepard from V3 was
Jim
inspired
Shepard
by
was-
Jandek. I could possibly, but anyways.
What's the title one more time? It's Photograph Burns.
Yes.
Telegraph Melts.
Hmm.
I would say no. Just
Fair
to
enough.
be contrary.
Fair enough.
Just to be contrary. I'm not. Yeah. I don't know.
I enjoy seeing patterns in the madness. So Soggy, the Sogmeister, you have chosen
Yep.
a song we're going to go out on.
Yep.
And did you, I forget which one, but let me set it up just a second. Okay, so, all right, Mr. Soggy has chosen a track we're going to go out on. Governor Rhodes.
That's right.
The opening track of the second side. So why Governor Rhodes?
Actually, no special reason, but with Governor Rhodes, what you got is you got the woman singer, and she actually does appear on quite a few tracks in this album, which is not a standard for Jandek. It's an anomaly. And her voice is wonderful. I think absolutely no one would say that Jandek has this amazing voice. He has the voice of Jandek, but he brought in this person who can sing actually very, very well. And she did sing, and she sang on several tracks, including this one. And the title of this track is Governor Rhodes. And it's not just her, it's him. So you got both of them. So they're working in counterpoint, or the Jandek version of counterpoint, which equals who the fuck knows. But it is, you have the sardonic wit of Jandek coming in. You have the beauteous voice of his collaborator. And then you have the crazy music. It's a great track. I think what needs to be done is I need to shut up and we need to play it so you can experience it. You know, Jandek and his partner, or whomever it is, delivering a very unique piece of music. Yeah.
In all his Jandekian glory.
In all his glory, and not to mention, insanity. I know he would disagree with that, but when I say insanity, I mean it in a good way. I mean, it's insanely awesome.
There is mention on the website maintained by Seth Tissue that the song Governor Rhodes may be about the governor of Ohio, James A. Rhodes, I think it was, who called in the National Guard on the protesters at Kent State in 1970, resulting in the death of 4 students. We think that's who he's talking about, or at least that's who Seth Tissue says he may be talking about. But it may just be a Radium Girls dead end type thing. But anyway, all right. So we're going to go out with Governor Rhodes. Thank you for joining us, Soggy. That has been episode 41. And yeah, I think we will talk about Jandek again in the future. But
For sure. For sure.
Let's give this a spin. All right. Good night, everyone. If I can, I can never get the play button.
We are here in earth and life and sky and magic and rain, love and fire and celebration. We are here together in love and life and magic and celebration. We are here let us celebrate. Celebrate our love. Celebrate our magic. Celebrate. Celebrate our love. Celebrate our magic. Celebrate.
Celebrate our love.
Let us chant. Chant with love. Chant with magic. Chant with celebration. Chant.
Chant.
Chant with love.
Chant with love.
Chant with magic. Chant. Chant forever. Chant for always. Chant. Let us sing. Sing for love. Sing for magic. Sing for always. Sing. Sing for Janet. Sing for Paul. Sing. Sing in celebration. Sing. Sing in love. Sing. Sing with magic. Sing. Sing forever. Sing. Chant.
Chant.
Celebrate.
Celebrate. Sing.
Sing. Sing.
Sing. Sing. Chant. Celebrate and sing.
We are here
In
earth, in light,
in light, in sky, in magic,
in rain,
in rain, in love,
fire, in celebration.
in celebration. We are here
Together, love, in light,
in light, in
celebration.
magic,
We are here.
in celebration.
Let us celebrate.
Let us celebrate.
Let us celebrate.
Celebrate our love.
Let us celebrate our love.
Celebration